Hi, everyone. Welcome back. All right, today I'm going to talk about a pretty fun topic, and that is hedge funds versus investment banks. Where should you work? All right, so I'm going to take middle and back office and kind of lump them together and then talk about front office. So let's start with back office. So, back office roles in hedge funds are pretty fun, actually. You have a lot of diversity in your roles, whether you're working in IT, in risk management, in valuations, or reporting. When I say back office in hedge funds, I mean roles that don't bring in the dough, right? They don't actually make money. But in hedge funds, you have a much larger impact than you would in an investment bank. At least it's more noticeable. So you're not going to focus on a single task. Rather, you're going to cover a whole unit, basically, and you're going to have a lot of responsibilities. You might have a role that's an IT role where you're doing some development, some project management, some reporting. You're generally covering this desk, but you also have to do reporting for that team. And what ends up happening as a result of this is your scope is much bigger. Many more people know who you are, so it's great for your career mobility within the same company. Your skill set is much more diverse because you're constantly learning new things and working on more projects. It's a lot of fun. The hours are pretty good. Look, it's not a front office role, so your bonuses will never be magnificent, but you'll get compensated pretty well. Your base will be slightly larger than at an investment bank, and your bonus will be much larger. And like I mentioned, your hours will be pretty good. Back office and banking, I generally advise people just not to do, which is funny because that's where I started. I think it's a good pivot from there if you're good at networking to move into something else. But just doing a banking back office role for your career, not necessarily the greatest thing. And here's why. First of all, investment banks are massive. And what ends up happening is, let's say you have a risk management division. And within the risk management division, there's a team of developers. That team will probably have 50 developers. So you're going to be given a specific project, a specific task, and then like 4 months to do it. Your entire 4 months are focused on one thing, and that is develop X, Y, and Z. Your entire project management experience is manage this big project, set up meetings, this and that. Now, while you can really shine in that role in a bank, you're very siloed. Your skill set's not going to grow. You're not going to meet people outside of your responsibility. Like if you're covering a certain desk, that's what you're going to be responsible for, and those are the people you're going to meet. So you could shine, you could do very well in that task, but you are much more siloed. The career development, it's not great. Bonuses tend to be pretty just, if it's plain back office like development, they're just awful. If it's middle office like risk management, they're just not great. But in any case, hedge funds will be way better. What I can say is really good for middle to back office investment banks is job security. People who get into those roles tend to develop in them and grow slowly. If you're a patient person, you will eventually get promoted and then get promoted again. And your career will just develop. And you'll get a lot of responsibilities, etc., etc. So it's good for career development. Whereas at a hedge fund, in those back office roles, you never know. The hedge fund could have a bad year and suddenly half the team is fired. And it could be completely unexpected. Unless you're a star performer, you'll probably be let go. Front office roles. So front office roles in banking are typically people think of 3 front office roles, and that is investment banking, equity research, and sales and trading. Equity research and investment banking tend to have the biggest bonuses. For sure, investment banking, like by far, takes the cake. And that's not necessarily saying that investment banking gets paid the best. Consistently, investment bankers get paid the best. But the best performing traders will get higher bonuses than the best performing investment bankers. So there's always that. Like if you're at the top, as a trader, you might do better. But generally and consistently, the investment banking analysts and associates and VPs and so on and so forth consistently get better bonuses. Hours are terrible. Investment banking, equity research, you're consistently going to have miserable hours and get home past 1 o'clock in the morning. That's just the way it is. And sales and trading, as a front office role in banking, you have pretty good hours. And if you're not a star performer, your bonuses won't be magnificent, but they'll be pretty good. If you are a star performer, especially in trading, you can do very, very well. The one thing I would add is that, I guess, two things. One is that as sales and trading, as that's being automated, which it is by strats and other developers, less and less sales traders are being hired in banking, especially traders. Just fewer and fewer traders are being hired every year. Eventually, it'll probably just go away. So might not be the greatest long-term career plan right now. Just throwing that out there. And the one other thing I want to mention is equity research. While the bonuses tend to be good, I spoke with a few managing directors in equity research in banking, and they always have an issue. And that issue is, come the end of the year, the managing directors are given this question by the bonus pool, whoever manages the bonus pool. And that question is, can you prove to us that you've demonstrated enough value to get this large bonus? Not just for the individual managing director, but their entire team. And in investment banking, you can say, oh, well, we did deal X, deal Y, and deal Z, and we brought in $50 million to the bank. Sales and trading can show the P&L numbers, whereas equity research, we produced research. And they don't actually bring in money. So I spoke with a few directors, some at the very senior level, and they always told me that it was a struggle how to answer that question end of the year, and it always got them nervous. Just something to keep in mind. Now, in the hedge fund, it's different because you're not doing the equity research and then the investment banking and the sales and trading. There's pretty much one thing, and that is trading. In hedge funds, trading is far more rewarding financially, I guess, and it's a little more interesting than in a bank because you're actually trading both the hedge fund's money and clients' money, and the P&L means a lot more in terms of the results of your trading. So the front office roles, when you think about them at a hedge fund, there's research, whether it's fundamental or quantitative. There's being a portfolio manager and a trader. But they're all kind of synonymous. Like they all flow into each other. Somebody who does research and does it well eventually gets promoted into either a trader or a PM role. And trader and PMs are kind of the same role. Maybe the PM manages the traders, depending on which fund it is. But essentially, when you're the person either researching or executing the trades, you're the person making the money. I have a few friends who very shortly after school were making 7 figures at a hedge fund. No, that's not an exaggeration. How? Well, they're really smart. They were either quant researchers or they came up with really good strategies, and the desk was making millions and millions of dollars directly because of them, and you get a piece of that as your bonus. Also, something to notice is when you are good in investment banks, I think Goldman Sachs might be the exception, but generally if you're good at an investment bank, your career progression still is pretty slow. Like you still have to wait the 2 to 3 years, get promoted, 2 to 3 years, get promoted. You might be the number one pick, but you still have to wait in line for those criteria or amount of years at certain levels to be met. Whereas at a hedge fund, that's not the case. Like I said, I know people 2 years in, they're running a whole desk themselves just because they perform so well. So all that red tape is gone. And it's really interesting. Just the way you can develop much, much faster. Once again, you have one bad year and you're finished. You have 2 bad years, whether it's at one fund or 2 funds, and you just can't get a job again. So your career is much more at risk. If you're phenomenal, the upside is way better at a hedge fund. And I think it's a little more fun. Also, just one thing to mention, like equity research and investment banking, as 2 of those 3 front office roles in banking, tend to put you to work on weekends, especially during earnings. So Sundays, not really yours. Saturdays, maybe not yours. Friday, you're going to stay late. Whereas at a hedge fund, trading hours are done. Maybe you'll sit back for half an hour and do some reporting, but then you leave. Maybe the research roles might keep you there an extra 2 hours, but then you leave. And the lights are off by 8 p.m. or even before then. So your hours are way, way better with a higher possible upside. Now, usually when I make a comment on LinkedIn or a post about this, I'll say something like, none of this really matters because whatever job you can get, you will get. But it kind of does matter because for the banking roles, certainly at the entry level, you're going to go through the typical application process. You're going to try to get that summer internship. It's much more cookie cutter to get those roles. Whereas hedge funds, typically to get those entry to associate level roles, either you will have worked in a bank for a few years and then a recruiter will pull you in, or you build a network of people and you get reached out to, or you reach out to people to find out what's available. I have such a network personally within the hedge fund world that I have a lot of hedge fund portfolio managers and risk managers always reaching out to me saying, hey, do you know anybody? And a lot of times I'll feed them people who just get hired like that. And that doesn't happen in banking where you do the typical application process. So you do have to have a different mindset when you go into, where am I going to focus on applying to hedge funds or banking? Unless, of course, you're doing something very targeted like quant research where you kind of could fit in both. But typically it's a bit of a different job search process. In any event, I hope you found this interesting. Please post any questions you have below, and I'll see you next week.